This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 596, recorded on Wednesday, December 7th, 2016. Just breathe. It's science! Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight on This Week in Science, we are going to fill your heads with a bird laser, fake news beliefs, and deep breaths. But first...
Disclaimer. What is really going on is a real thing. Everyone may have views or opinions. These views and opinions can be shaped and formed and influenced and manipulated and solidified like a lump of children's Play-Doh. However, let us never forget or even imagine that truth is an opinion, that facts depend on a point of view. There is a reality of the world that is beyond human perception, not invisible to the mind, but beyond the ability of its doughy design to dismiss. Reality goes on, with or without human words or action. And while we head into a future free from the foundations of logic, one where reality may be a near constant casualty, you will begin to hear people asking more and more often, what is really going on? And when you hear this question asked, even if you yourself are unsure of the answer, reassure them that yes, reality is going on, and it is still being discussed openly and honestly here on This Week in Science, coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to you, Kirsten.
And no Blair tonight, but good science to you, Justin, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. So sad that Blair's not here, but she's having a little bit of an early birthday celebration with her mother in that beautiful place. I don't even know. I can't say that word together with it. Yeah, I know. The land where everybody's happy and wears mouse ears and stuff. I don't have the same feelings about it that other people do. I'm sorry.
So strange. It is to me. I always enjoy it, and it's the big picture thing of the thing. It's like somebody had this idea. What if, and created it on a massive scale.
It's great.
And that's fantastic.
Yes. I am glad that Blair is in her happy place and celebrating her birthday. And I'm also glad that we are here for yet another episode of This Week in Science. We have a great show ahead, lots of stories. Don't worry, there will be animal stories, even though Blair is not here. We have added some animal stories to the docket. Additionally, if anyone out there is interested, you can go to TWIS.org to find out about our 2017 TWIS Blair's Animal Corner calendar, and also we'll be posting information about our January 19th show at the Cal Academy of Sciences Nightlife with SF Sketchfest. Go to TWIS.org for that information. Okay, on this week's show, I've got tons of science news stories. I've got some dark matters to talk about. I've also got bird laser goggles, and I really want a pair. And I just want to remind everyone to breathe in. Breathing in. Let's breathe. What did you bring, Justin?
I brought false beliefs that cannot be refuted by facts. Microbes have feelings. And paving the rainforest, as well as perhaps a grab bag of other things this time allows.
Oh, such a grab bag. We've got a giant grab bag of science stories. Can't wait to get into all of them. So let's get to it. Drumroll, please. Off the top, why don't we just dive right into the science policy? And you know what? For once, it's kind of good news. we're always talking about, oh, the government this, and they're not going to fund that, and they're not doing this, and this problem is blah, 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 blah. We're constantly talking about kind of the bad news when it comes to science and the government, but some really great news. Today, the Senate passed the 21st Century Cures Act. This is big news. They passed it with a 94-5 vote. It was previously passed in the House last week with a 392-26 vote. This is an incredibly bipartisan bill that was passed. Massive document, almost 1,000 pages long. It's health legislation that people on both sides of the aisle, all sides of the aisle, have been working on since about 2014. It is going to cost about $6.3 billion. But, there's a little bit of good there's a little bit of something for everybody in it. So people really didn't have a lot to complain about. Everybody, especially the insurance company lobbies, wow, they're getting a lot. But anyway, this act is one of the big things it's trying to do is to relax the FDA's, Food and Drug Administration's drug approval process. So we know that there are a lot of drugs that get off-label use, so that you can't necessarily get a prescription for that particular purpose, but maybe your doctor can give you these off-label uses with a prescription. But they're not actually sold for these for particular purposes, right? And so the FDA process, basically this bill is going to try and make it easier for the FDA to be able to approve these off-label uses as on-label uses, so that things kind of get, if there is evidence of medical use for certain purposes with a positive effect and not really any negative effects, then that a drug could potentially get slated for a different use or a better use. Additionally, it might also fast track medical devices and other drugs. And this is one of the problems that people did have with this particular act, is that that the pharmaceutical company did have a massive role in creating this act, and that they're trying to kind of maybe undermine some of the requirements that make sure that all the testing is done. So one of the things, for example, that they might be able, that pharmaceutical companies will be able to do is apply for drugs to be licensed by the FDA, but not have to give them all of the data, not have to provide all the data, but rather a summary of the results. So this is not going to enable the FDA. It will enable the FDA to kind of gloss over things and see things more rapidly. Oh, these results look great, but it will not allow them to look more deeply into the actual data that underlie those numbers. And so this could be a problem when it comes to pharmaceutical.
Absolutely horrible. Yeah. Okay.
Regulations.
I can understand, for instance, you said that in some cases, the FDA will be allowed to use a summary in order to approve. Like if they were like, you know what, I think we've got a pretty good idea how whatever this drug is done in other arenas, the summary of how it's doing in this new off-label use, for instance, that'd be perfectly acceptable to use the summary. We'll take all the other data too, but we might not approve. We can approve it on the summary, but we'll have that in case something goes right. We can look into it further later. But but instead what they're doing is like, all that they have to provide is the summary.
A data summary, just a
insane.
Summary, not the raw data files. And
that's insane.
Yeah. So this is something that is not going to necessarily help the public. Another way in which this is going to work, it expands the FDA's voucher system, and the voucher system rewards drug companies if they work on certain conditions, say conditions that only affect a very small number of children. It's not going to be a big money maker for the pharmaceutical companies. So the FDA has been trying to get pharmaceutical companies to be more likely to work on them, to come up with treatments for these very small minority groups that are affected by diseases, by giving them vouchers, tradable vouchers. And so the vouchers, the drug companies can then turn them back in to get expedited, fast-tracked, priority reviews from the FDA for their drugs. So the other aspect of this is that the
for those drugs or for any drug?
that is unclear. And so
it sounds like if it's a tradable voucher,
yes.
It's like, okay, I'm going to work on this one little project, and then this big moneymaker fast track it.
Yeah,
there's danger in there, but I also get that you have to find some sort of an incentive to get them to do
absolutely
other than the broad consumer market of drug.
Yeah, the other problem with this the voucher incentive, though, is that they can be sold to other pharmaceutical companies. So you can take your voucher.
You're creating a market.
There's a market. And so you can take your voucher, and it's not specific to your company. You can sell it to any other company if other companies, if it's worth it for the money.
And it almost, I mean, the fear would be, when do you use this voucher? Well, when we maybe don't have very good data. That's when you would maybe really need. Otherwise, you could just say, hey, look, we have stacks of data. We'll just give you that. There you go. That should be enough for a decision. On this other drug, here's a voucher instead. Okay? That's what it sounds like, at least. Now, there may be more details that we're not into at this point, but this is definitely something that needs to, we got to do.
There's definitely some more digging that needs to be done, and people are definitely going to have to pay attention to what will be happening with the FDA and pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies over the next several years.
The next 100 years, 20, right? It's a whole
21st century. That's right.
21st Century Cures Act. They're really not this decade, not next decade. This is going to be the thing we do for 100 years. They want it. Okay. So, well, at least we
oh, go ahead. Yeah. At least what?
Well, at least that gives us enough time to monitor this.
Yeah. So those are some of the negatives or the questionables. We don't know exactly how those are going to end up affecting drugs coming to market and what is actually going to happen there. But this legislation is going to hand out $4.8 billion over 10 years for Biden's cancer moonshot. So $1.8 billion goes to Biden's cancer initiative. $1.6 billion to the brain initiative, so studying the brain and disorders of the brain, and $1.4 billion for the precision medicine initiative. And then there are $1 billion in grants to states over 2 years to help states fight opioid abuse and addiction, which is potentially going to be great. So this bill is, they're trying to simplify research grants and also policy, make it simpler for things to get through the pipeline in the FDA, make mental health a priority nationally, and then also bolster monitoring of drug-resistant bacteria, providing states with funding to fight the opioid crisis, and to support these research initiatives. So there's a wonderful article with more information at Ars Technica if you're interested. There's also an article that's available through Science Magazine at news.science.com.
It's interesting that they would dedicate $1 billion to increased law enforcement incarceration of people who have encountered opiates through a Cures Act. It seems
I don't think it's not putting more people in jail. It's not $1 billion.
Well, I thought that's how we dealt with it. That's how we deal with drug crises typically. I wonder what's different this time.
It's a bunch of white people.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Was possibly part of what.
I don't know. No, yeah, opioid.
That
the
couldn't
opioid.
Be why.
Yeah, I saw somebody tweeting earlier, or somebody. It was you on. No, it was you on Facebook. You posted.
No.
Did you? Or maybe it was my cousin.
No. Probably wasn't me. I haven't talked about
Who
this.
was it? Maybe it was my cousin. I saw somebody posting on social media how it's really interesting that opioid addiction and this epidemic, it's bad. It's really bad, but how it's getting attention as a mental health issue and is getting a bunch of funding for actual scientific and health measure initiatives,
which is awesome,
which is great. But the crack cocaine epidemic was, considered, it was a different class of people, and it was put into, this is incarceration. It's not a mental health issue. People are going to go to jail.
Yeah, and mandatory minimums and long-term jail sentences.
Maybe it's a sign of the times, and that's what I hope it is, that we're applying science and good mental health policy, and that this will be the way it works moving forward.
Yeah,
we can only look at the past and hope that it's a lesson and that we have learned it and are moving forward.
But even if we include that past in this present, it would still be a sign of the times. That's the sign. That's what the sign says.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I'm glad it's being approached this way.
Yeah, I am glad. And addiction is a mental health issue, and it should be treated as such. Definitely moving forward. And also moving outward. Let's move away from the policy and the politics for a moment into the deep reaches of outer space. The dark matter of outer space. Yeah. The European Space Organization, the ESO's Very Large Telescope, VLT survey in Chile, has been looking at the bending of light through weak gravitational lensing, through making really precise measurements through an effect that's known as cosmic shear. And the press release says it's a subtle variant of weak gravitational lensing. So the light is emitted in gravitational lensing. You have the light emitted from very distant galaxies getting slightly bent off its original course, warped in the way that we see it by the gravitational effects of large amounts of matter. And that large amount of matter could be gravity clusters. It could be, not gravity, galaxy clusters, galaxy clusters. It could just be dark matter in space that we don't see, but there could be just pockets of space that are dense with mass and have a lot of gravitational effect, warps the light, hence we see it differently. So researchers processing the images from this survey, which I love. It's called the KIDS survey, the Kilo Degree survey, which means 1,000 degrees. They looked over 1,000 degrees. Well, they're working on it. They looked at 5 patches of the sky over about 15 million galaxies. And what they were able to determine from looking is, do you remember hearing about the Planck analysis and how dark it looked at the sky and said dark matter is clumpy, and this clumpiness is what has caused galaxies to cluster together and to clump together, right?
Which and it's as much as I actually understand about this, but yeah, I do remember that space is clumpy. Like that was my takeaway. Space is clumpy.
Space is clumpy. Well,
this is the biggest, and this also is, this is the biggest, from what I understand, the biggest scan of its type, right? They've done these before, but this is the biggest scale version of this look.
Yeah, which is great because they're really making a lot of measurements, which is going to make this a much more statistically significant result, right? They're actually measuring this really weak effect on the light in space to be able to figure out, okay, is it actually, are we getting this accurate result? And so
is space clumpy? Man wants to know.
Is space clumpy? Well, not as clumpy as the Planck survey suggested.
Okay.
Survey says not so clumpy.
Maybe a little clumpy, but not as clumpy as maybe you thought it would be.
Yeah, exactly. So, the take-home result of this is it's like, okay, still clumpy, yet not as clumpy. So it's like, just, I don't know, just a little less clumpy. So the interesting question here is how this is actually going to affect our understanding of galaxy formation and the formation of these galactic clusters. So is it all because of dark matter? Does it all match up perfectly? Or the previous results back in the early 2000s, like around 2006, they did computer models, which kind of lined up really well with this idea. So really bright galaxies tend to kind of cluster together, and they're probably more aligned with these clumps of dark matter. But they also found that there were like these odd kind of there were diffuse halos around these areas, and that there were also a visible light, and that there were also less bright galactic clusters that tended to end up in different areas. And so what I'm thinking is potentially this is going to just fall in line more with our understanding of how visible matter, baryonic matter, has come to be in the places where it is.
Yeah.
But I don't know. How are they going to adjust it?
We're running the universe from 14 billion years ago forward and trying to figure out that evolution. The interesting things here are like, this is sort of refuting what was expected a bit. The actual observation that we've got from this look is different than what had been previously theorized. Not off the scales like, oh my gosh, physics is totally different. Nothing like that. But big enough of a difference that we got to look at it some more. There's more here that needs to be delved into. More research.
Yeah, and I think the key, you look at the title for the article, Kids 450. And 450 is because it corresponds to the 450 square degrees, or the 1% of the sky that they looked at. Cosmological parameter constraints from tomographic weak gravitational lensing. And so I think parameter constraints is the key phrase here. It's not something completely different. It's just taking what we know and narrowing it, making it more known, which is pretty cool. But yes.
It's like one of those fake, this doesn't actually work, but every once in a while there's it's usually some sort of spy thriller where they've got this fuzzy image and they're going to run it through the computer and make it more and more clear until eventually the face of the perpetrator, who's nervously in the room going, hey, you got to get out of here, comes into view, right? It's not quite how it works, because that doesn't actually but it's clarifying things. It's every one of these observations that we do takes that theory that we had and says, okay, cut off these edges, put a little bit more definition here. Okay, now we still have a theoretical model that's fuzzy, but we've got these direct data points that are now filled in, and now we got to look again and retool the theory to see if we can back engineer and do more observation as well.
That's right.
It's just fun.
Super fun. Super fun. And I know that the physicists who are working on this, the astrophysicists who are working on these questions, they probably go to work every day going, this is fun.
This is fun. I'm so glad I'm doing this.
Yeah. All right, Justin, what you got?
Yeah. And I figure a lot of them too have a real gut feeling about what they're going to see when they get their data back. In that research project, in fact, we were just talking about the scan, the scientists had 3 sets of data. 2 of them were fake, and 1 was the real set. And they gave themselves a kind of data double blind where they had to go through and figure out which one was correct, which was also sort of interesting there. And there is a perceived link between our gut and our mood. We hear this all the time, like somebody has a gut feeling, you go with your gut. Somebody's got butterflies in their stomach because they're on stage and they feel like they're freaking out. This link has received some pretty interesting scientific support recently from the American College of Neuropsychopharmacology. There's a Dr. Vicky Ellingrod. She states, current state-of-the-art research in both animal models as well as humans point to the link between gut microbiota and mood and anxiety models, as well as the potential for psychiatric medications to directly affect the gut microbe or microbiome. So, research rats. They were subjected to chronic stress over 7 weeks. The number of microorganisms in their guts decreased as stress became more chronic. The research rats also began experiencing loss of pleasure and despair-like behaviors. Right? Stress, less microbes. Okay.
Maybe they had a tummy ache too.
Yeah, right?
They don't feel so good.
Amazingly, when the microorganisms were transferred from the stressed rats to a group of animals, research rats as well, that had not been stressed out, the stress-free research rats also began to demonstrate the same behavioral changes after a period of 5 days, suggesting a possible potential non-correlative but direct mechanism between the mood change and the change of the microbes. Possibly. But amazing, right? You have these weird behaviors after the stress and you know the microbiome has changed. You take that microbiome out, you put it in another research rat that's been just enjoying life, relaxing on the exercise wheel, just making it easy, and all of a sudden, they start acting sort of depressed or anxious or stop being interested in pleasures, whatever observations they made to determine that. So, treatment implications were examined in a series of human studies that demonstrated similar reductions in microbiome in participants suffering from both major depression and bipolar disorder. Changes were associated with increased anxiety, sleep problems, increased complaints of general health problems. Referring to these associations in bipolar subjects, Dr. Simon Evans concluded that the data support the hypothesis that targeting the microbiome may be an effective paradigm for bipolar disorder. So, of course, what they're talking about here is figuring out a way to address the gut first and, the mind perhaps second or at the same time. Role of medication.
Gut-mind connection, gut-brain.
Where they, maybe start treating possibly, because this is all possible. Stop saying possible because, of course, this is an indication that we could be heading here. You're treating the gut to take care of depression or bipolar, or at least fight some of those symptoms. Maybe some of those behaviors are symptoms of these diseases, and it's not necessarily rooted in the gut, not necessarily the source completely, but a way to address in conjunction or separately from antidepressants and antipsychotics. Well, it goes on here because they're actually going to talk about this here. Role of medications was examined by studying individuals over time. Dr. Shadi Kalarge was able to examine microbiome changes when individuals were depressed or in remission and when they were and were not receiving antidepressants. While no changes in the gut bacterial diversity were seen in patients with depression, species-level differences were observed. So the sort of ratio of which species are predominant was changed. In addition, starting antidepressants was associated with changes in tryptophanase-producing bacteria. In addition, preliminary evidence suggests the presence of increased intestinal permeability in depression, potentially leading to increased bacterial translocation. So gut permeability and the ability for microbes to take root or move from one place to the other in the gut seem to increase during depression. Finally, changes in how our body metabolizes energy and resulting weight gain can be, they say, a side effect of a typical antipsychotic medication. Dr. Stephanie Flowers showed that female bipolar patients who gained weight with antipsychotic treatment had a greater reduction in microbiome diversity than did female bipolar patients who were also being treated with antipsychotic medications but did not gain weight, suggesting that health of our gut may also put us at increased risk for side effects from medications. So the sort of summary of all this, I suppose, is that barrier that we've been talking about a lot, not just about human health and digestion and things like obesity or energy levels or any rest of this, but direct mental health as part of our is going to be routed. Almost all of human health, as this is going forward, seems to have some connection to the health diversity of our microbiome. So again, everything we know about nutrition, and now we have to throw in mental illness, needs to have this whole field of our microbiome included within it, to the point where we have to challenge and question some of our previous understandings of these systems, and add this whole new complicated system into the mix, and learn and understand how it's affecting, what the mechanisms, connections are, and how we can better treat diseases going forward.
Yeah, I mean, there are going to be so many interesting questions answered as we move forward. I mean, while this was showing correlations in changes over the course of the depression or bipolar bouts, and then remission, and then also the treatments that were taken, it's kind of, okay, I'm going to measure these things in you as this stuff is happening to you. We're going to kind of make a correlation. We don't have any absolutes, anything that we show is causing the causative.
We're not completely there with mechanisms.
We're not there with the mechanisms. And so it'll be really interesting to see, like with the SSRIs, is it that the SSRIs are stimulating something to happen at the gut level to produce?
And the SSRI is some sort of government stealth plane?
SSRI is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And so they're supposed to, they act wherever there are the specific serotonin receptors in the nervous system. So they could be acting at the level of the brain. They could be acting at the level of the gut as well. Yeah. But what they affect is the reuptake of the serotonin. So normally you dump serotonin, the nerve dumps serotonin out into the synapse space. And then it has these receptors that grab onto it and then suck it back up again so it can be recycled for more use. And so there's like this neuronal recycling process that takes place with our transmitters. And so what happens with the reuptake inhibitors is that it stops the reuptake from taking place so that there's more serotonin available in the synapse space to move forward to other neurons, to latch onto them, to give you that little whatever it is in the brain that gives you that boost of happy, the serotonin boost, right? But serotonin is also related to things like digestion. It plays a major role in our digestive process. So there's some, what's the mechanism that's leading to these particular indoles being produced at higher levels? What is it changing in the gut? What's going on there? And so that's going to be, and why is that good for this particular species of bacteria?
And what's indoles? I don't know what indoles is.
It is a nitrogen-based molecule. It's like a ring-shaped nitrogen-based molecule. Okay. It's a family of molecules.
Okay. So yeah, and they did notice that I guess there was an increase of that, and it was part of the tryptophanase producing bacteria. So yeah, they're seeing a little bit of mechanism, a little bit of reaction
in there, yeah, and so
stuff going on.
Yeah, so the question is, okay, these bacteria get to stick around, and then what kind of a feedback loop does it create, and what kind of process is occurring between the serotonin and the bacteria and the entire process, and the tryptophan that the bacteria produce, how does that then go back to produce more serotonin to go create more, what is the system that's being supported there? It's the fascinating stuff. This is all that as we get closer, ask more questions, we will get toward to those mechanistic answers. It's so fascinating.
Yes. And if we just take the advice of our chat room, the answer would be, sounds like high colonics and eating lots of pie and ice cream. It seems to be the two conclusions they're getting from the study.
Microbial a la mode. Thanks. Desbome. Yeah.
Nice.
I'd like my microbe ice cream, please. That would be microbe cream. I don't know. It's going to be fascinating. I tell you. If you just tuned in, this is This Week in Science. I'm Dr. Kiki, and I'm here with Justin. No Blair tonight, but you know what? It's time for some animal stories. Yeah, we could pretend.
Pretend we're doing the song.
We don't have to talk about squirrels and all that kind of stuff right now. No squirrels, no pandas.
This is the story you're about to bring. When I saw it come up, and I thought I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. This is perfect.
This story just makes me seriously very, very happy. And the reason it makes me very happy is that really they have researchers at Stanford University have combined birds and lasers and goggles. They made bird laser goggles.
Bird laser goggles.
They made bird laser goggles. And why on earth would researchers need to make bird laser goggles? Because, of course, they're making the birds fly through a little space full of lasers, and they don't want to burn their eyes. So wow. You have to be practical as a scientist, as an engineer. And if you're not going to hurt your animal, you must figure out a way to help them. And in this case, protective laser goggles for birds.
Fantastic. So these are birds. These are birds that they had trained too to fly from one spot to another. I guess on command, or or just as a habit. So if they need to keep doing this test, they need to make sure the birds are healthy.
Yeah, and so they have to make sure of course have to make sure the birds are healthy. And in this particular study, they had to train. They trained 2 parrots to hop between 2 perches. And so they hopped off of a perch, had to beat their wings a couple of times to get to the other perch at the other side of this chamber. And so they had a clear plexiglass window or a glass window that they could use to observe the birds and film them. And also the chamber was also a very sensitive chamber. And so the perch and also the floor are force transducers. And so such sensitive force transducers that every time the birds beat their wings, they're able to measure the amount of force from the air that is coming from the wings with these transducers.
Nice. So they can register that. Is it a downdraft or whatever it is?
Right, the downdraft and the updraft. They measure a couple of aspects of it, and the fun part here is that not only did they have the birds hop back and forth, yes, there were lasers involved. So what they ended up doing after they trained the birds to hop back and forth, and they knew that their force transducers were working, they also created some experiments where they put a bunch of particles in the air, and also like little smoke particles, little particles, and used lasers to be able to visualize the movement of those particles within the chamber as a result of the beating of the bird's wings. And historically, it's the way that they have been trying to figure out how birds fly, how they move their wings, I was going to say arms, how they move their wings, and how much force at which part of the wing beats. They've missed out on certain details because inevitably airflow ends up becoming turbulent, and you got to have strong lasers to be able to measure the airflow. And so researchers just have never put laser goggles on birds before. And so this is how they solved this problem, little tiny special goggles for the birds. And so it's a very animal friendly design, and I really love it. They found that the wing beats for these birds, they last about 50 milliseconds, and the sensors take a new measurement every millisecond. And then they can get a very precise value every 10 milliseconds to be able to get a detail for the lift that is produced by the bird's wings. And they ended up discovering that the bird's wings actually create a lot of lift in the downstroke, but where they don't really create lift is on the upstroke. And so there's a lot of force on the down and basically zero force on the upstroke. No lift on the up, lots of lift on the downstroke. And so this clarifies questions that the field that have been existing in the field based on previous techniques that researchers have used. And so now they are going to be moving forward, and they want to do, now that they have a proof of concept of this methodology for studying how these trained parrots could fly, now they're going to be moving forward to try and find out how hummingbirds fly and how many different species of birds fly. And they're going to be having to manufacture lots of little goggles. And so hummingbirds are going to be particularly interesting because we've spoken before about how they have a figure 8 type wing beat, in which is very much like an insect, which allows the hummingbirds to hover, as opposed to parrots and other birds, which their beats are much more, I guess, elongated, like an elliptical beat pattern. And so, but anyway, this is elucidating the lift generated by birds' wings. And it'll probably end up helping us make better airplanes.
And also protect the eyesight of welding pigeons.
Little welding pigeons, yes. And I just love this, boldly going where no bird has gone before. These pigeons with their goggles on. It's just fabulous.
Nice.
Just fabulous. So thank you very much to the Stanford engineers who are working on this. They're absolutely fantastic. This is mechanical engineer David Lentick and Diana Chin, who are involved in this project. Super fun. Super fun. Bird laser goggles. Oh dear. All right.
I think
Justin,
we should probably head to the break. I got another story, but we're already past the typical halfway point. I can throw that one to the second half.
Okay.
And then
sounds great. So
work out nicely.
Sounds like you need to take a break. All right, we will be back in just a few moments with more science stories. Justin's got a habitat corner coming in, and I still have to talk about breathing. So take a few breaths. We'll be back in just a few moments with more This Week in Science.
Explain the things you heard with more than intuition. The line of reason shows the way to go. No conclusion. The methods of hypothesis and patience are the only things I need. Put on a pair of goggles and go looking for the things I couldn't see.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful December. You know what we're doing right now? We are selling our second annual TWIS calendar. That's right. This Week in Science, Blair's Animal Corner. Blair has wonderfully made art and created a calendar for all of us to enjoy, and they are available if you go to TWIS.org. That's right. Head on over to TWIS.org. You'll be able to find the link to be able to get yourself one of these wonderful calendars with scientific dates to follow along throughout the year, so you feel like you've always got sciencey holidays to enjoy. Also letting you know, remind you every Wednesday about TWIS's shows, and also with wonderful art from Blair. So much goodness in these calendars. Get your hands on one now. Supplies are dwindling quickly. I just sent out a mailing this week, and we've only got about half of our order left. So let's get them out, you guys. They make wonderful gifts, and just for yourself too. They're fantastic. Wonderful calendars that you can enjoy the entire year. TWIS.org. Additionally, we are going to be at Cal Academy of Sciences SF Sketchfest Nightlife on January 19th. That's a Thursday night around 6 p.m., I believe, or that's when the nightlife starts. I don't know what time we go on yet. I haven't been informed of that, but we are very excited to be taking part. And if you are in the San Francisco Bay Area, make sure you get yourself a ticket to that. So you can go to SF Sketchfest, look for SF Sketchfest, and you'll be able to find, let's see, what is that? SF Sketchfest. There's the website, 2017 on Google. That's right, .com, sfsketchfest.com. And if you look for January 19th, Cal Academy of Sciences SF Sketchfest Nightlife, there's a lot going on that night, but TWIS is on the schedule. So get your tickets now so that it doesn't end up sold out and you miss us, right? Be a part of our show. Please come join us if you're in the Bay Area. We would love to see you. TWIS also has merchandise that you might enjoy. So if you head over to, again, TWIS.org, it's our website for all the things you know and love about TWIS. Head to TWIS.org and you can click on the Zazzle store link in the main header bar. The Zazzle store link will take you directly to our store where you'll find all sorts of TWISy items, from ceramic ornaments related to Blair's Animal Corner to TWIS trucker hats. What, you just peruse, enjoy, gifts and fun galore. Support TWIS in the process of purchasing these items. Also at TWIS.org, you'll be able to find information on donating to TWIS. So if you go down the sidebar, there's a big button that says donate. You click on that. That button will take you to a page where you can choose how you want to donate through PayPal. We also accept donations through Patreon. So on the main header bar, click on the Patreon link. That will take you to Patreon, patreon.com/thisweekinscience, where you'll be able to click a big button and become a patron at the level of support that you wish to support us at. If you're unable to support us financially, help us out by buying something or by helping us produce our show by supporting us through donations. You know, we would love it if you would just tell the world about TWIS. Can you post the most recent episode on YouTube or on iTunes or on Twitter or Facebook? Tell people you love TWIS and share the love. Make this the season of TWIS, the season of giving TWIS to people you know and love. Try and spread us far and wide, because that really will help us out the most. We thank you for your support. We really could not do this without you.
Lives that they lead need adjusting. They drive to the bookstore and blindly start trusting the miracles and cures all laid down in black ink, never even bothering to stop and think. The only real power that I do believe is the dollars and cents all these authors receive.
And we're back with more This Week in Science.
All right, Justin, tell me a story.
Fake news
Beep,
has
beep,
been,
beep, 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 beep.
has been making a lot of real news lately, hasn't it?
It
Oh my
has.
goodness.
Ugh,
So
so much.
So we're in this strange time where as the ability to self-publish is democratizing the media more and more, it is also allowing the spread of fake news, false advertising, outright propaganda to reach more and more people. So as we begin to adjust to this tabloid age of information, everyone needs to keep this next story in mind. This is, as it is illustrating how big the problem we're up against might actually be. In a study on false memories, Dr. Kimberly Wade in the Department of Psychology demonstrated, and I should know where this is, but I don't see it here. It'll come up. In the Department of Psychology demonstrates that if we are told about a completely fictitious event in our lives and repeatedly imagine that event occurring, almost half of us would accept that it actually did. 50% of us are susceptible to believing we've experienced fictitious events as though we lived them, that they are from our own life's memory. Over 400 participants in a memory implantation study had fictitious autobiographical events suggested to them. It's found that around 50% of the participants believed to some degree they had experienced those events. Participants came to remember a range of false events, such as taking a childhood hot air balloon ride, playing a prank on a teacher.
I've never been for a hot balloon ride.
Not yet, but after the study, you might be like, oh yeah, now, you know what? I do remember this. Also, they were one of the other events was creating havoc at a family wedding. I think most of these were designed to have been, childhood memories.
Oh, man.
30% of participants appeared to remember the event. They accepted the suggested event, elaborated on how the event occurred, and even described images of what the event was like. Another 23% showed signs they accepted and suggested this suggested event to some degree and believed it really happened. These findings have significance in many, many areas, obviously, raising questions about the authenticity of memories used in forensic investigations, courtrooms, and therapy treatments. They're trying to jog somebody's memory of an event that they don't quite remember. Moreover, the collective memories of a large group of people or society could be incorrect due to information in the news, for example, having a striking effect on people's perception and behavior afterwards, as we have seen actual real-world evidence of when a man walked into a pizza parlor based on some sort of horrendous fake news stories that he was
reading,
digesting. Yeah. Dr. Wade further states, we know that many factors affect the creation of false beliefs and memories, such as asking a person to repeatedly imagine a fake event or to view photos to jog their memory, but we don't fully understand how all these factors interact. The finding that a large portion of people are prone to developing false beliefs is important. We know that from our research, from other research, that distorted beliefs can influence intentions, attitudes, behaviors of people. And I've got to go and figure out where this came from real quick. Hang on a second. Wait, there it was. This was University of Warwick is where this originated from.
Yeah, this isn't just one study either. I mean, there have been studies over the years that have, we've reported on and other people have reported on so much that it's become known that you can't really trust an eyewitness on the witness stand, in trials, that leading the witness actually really you can start planting ideas in their heads about the things that happen. But this is being with the self-titled mega analysis of these reports from 8 peer-reviewed false memory implantation studies. So it's really starting to dig into, that this isn't just an odd thing that's popped up here or there in a study that doesn't have a lot of support. This is actually something that's becoming much more accepted in the body of literature.
Yeah, and we're like I started talking about in the disclaimer, we're really heading into a, there was some news.
Where are we?
that I
What's
left the
going
TV
on?
on the news because I wanted to hear about something, and I just should not. I mean, I don't know where you get news now from anywhere. And there was somebody explaining how we're in a post-fact society. We're like, the fact part of things, reality, isn't what matters as much as how many people you can convince of your perspective or agenda or whatever it is.
I mean, that's the way it's
That's a
been for.
terrifying.
It is. I mean, finally somebody put this terrible name to it, calling it post fact. But it's been this way for years. I mean, this is what politics has been. It's been convincing the largest group of people that you're going to be doing things in for their benefit. And it's how different groups have been trying to twist information. I mean, we've got the smoking lobby, who have been working to hide information to make you think that you understand something completely different from reality. And now those tactics are being used by many other groups.
Yeah, but here's the analogy that part of it, I think what might be the problem though, or as I'm seeing it, like I don't know what it was with like somebody in the chat said that 89% of people, Kevin Unique, 89% of people will believe anything you put in the form of a percentage. Okay, I'm about to do that. Some percentage of people, was a big percentage of people, believe that aliens visit the planet on a regular basis. A much smaller percentage of the population thought that police would use violence against unarmed people in a non-dangerous situation. Now we have these cell phones and we have cameras and everything, right? We don't have any UFOs abducting people caught on iPhones, but we have a lot of police violence against unarmed people. Okay. And then so there is a democratization there of what sort of information can get revealed to the public. But from the news organization side, I guess is what I'm really terrified of, is that news media, and I was looking at the North Dakota pipeline standoff a lot, but the video that was coming directly from there was saying one thing to me. Yeah. And the reporting on it was, police say this is taking place. Protesters say this is why they don't want, but there wasn't. Okay, there's an actual real thing somewhere in between what two sides say, and if you just report on what two sides say about anything, and don't go any further than what they told you, that's fake news.
It's fake.
The way the news is being reported is, to be fair, we'll let both sides say what the information is, without a reporter delving into, digging through, and discovering facts and bringing those to bear. And that's, I think, the disconcerting trend that I've been seeing, is we'll let both sides say whatever they want and not have a drill down on it beyond that. That's what's frightening.
And I guess that what takes it back to the study is that people are so suggestible to these false beliefs about things that have happened. And so it's all about, like you said, affecting people's perception. And even with video and these things, you can take a picture or a video and then put some music on the video and give it a completely different feeling than what it had, or put a picture with a caption under it or have it associated with an article that really that picture never was associated with, but you fit them together and suddenly it tells a new story, because you're taking different modalities of sense and putting them together in a novel way. And I think it's all fascinating, but yes, we don't have to have lived something to remember it as our own.
That's wow. And,
yeah.
And I don't want to get into feed truth or trolls in any way, but there was a clip that I always remembered seeing the very nose of an airplane right before it hit the Pentagon, and because that's how it was being reported. And if you go back, there actually isn't a shot like that. I'm not doubting that an airplane hit it. But I did believe that I'd seen that in coverage, and so there's a lot of skepticality I then have to have about things I've seen, right, or any of us have seen or thought we witnessed, when it's possible you didn't actually see what you think you saw.
Right, because you didn't actually see it, but maybe because of all the things you're exposed to on the internet, all the pictures you've seen, the things you've looked at, the websites you've been to, the conversations you've had with people, suddenly you have a memory of having seen something that you never did before. Yeah. We should all be aware of our own proclivity to this and the fact that it can bias our thinking. We all can be biased, every single one of us. We just need to be aware of it. It's hard to keep track of it, but
it's a human thing.
But you know what? I should take a breath right now. Yeah, maybe take a breath, breathe in through your nose, out through the mouth. Right, it's good. That's good. Inhaling through your nose was recently found by researchers to heighten your memory and also heighten your response, your reactivity to fearful stimuli.
So there is some truth to calling some people mouth breathers?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So, published in the Journal of Neuroscience, researchers at Northwestern University have, Feinberg School of Medicine, they have done a study where they looked at people's brain activity while they breathed. And this came from a study previous where they put electrodes into epileptic patients' brains to monitor their seizures. But what they found is that the brain activity fluctuated with breathing. And so they're like, okay, all right, we're in here in the brain, in the hippocampal area, kind of near this area where emotions and memory get processed. And so they're like, okay, let's ask some deeper questions and actually do a little bit more looking. And so they got 60 subjects to make really rapid decisions based on faces that they saw in the lab, and their breathing was being recorded. And so they were presented pictures of fearful faces or surprised faces. And then the subjects, as fast as they could, had to indicate which emotion the face was expressing. If people were inhaling, they were recognized as fearful more quickly than when they saw faces when they were exhaling. So all people, if you were inhaling, you recognized fearful faces faster than when you're exhaling. However, correlation. But this didn't work for surprise faces. And then additionally, this effect went further down when people did the same task breathing through their mouths. And so it was very specific to fear and breathing through your nose. And so they did another experiment where they were looking at memory and not emotional response. They wanted to see stuff related to the hippocampus. And so they were shown pictures of objects on a computer screen and asked to remember these objects for later. And they found that if the images were seen when somebody was inhaling, people recalled the images better. So, breathing through your nose, you're inhaling through your nose. It's taking air past a bunch of sensors, smell sensors, right? So you've got smell stimuli. You've got also this neural stimulation is going to be heading up to your brain, to your olfactory bulb. It's going to be related to your environment. You're going to be maybe our olfactory sense is much more tied to how our general perception of an environment
Oh, wait a
is
second.
taken in any moment.
Right,
And so if
right.
you're breathing through your nose,
It's
there's a
taking
whole bunch of sensory information. Breathing through your mouth, less sensory information.
and you know what this reminds me, of course, is our previous guest who we were talking about the conditioning that takes place with smelling a smell, or right?
Right. Yeah. And so smell and memory are very, very highly correlated.
Right,
Yes.
right. And so as we're inhaling, we may be taking a snapshot, or you know,
It's part of the snapshot. Yeah.
Yeah. For wow, that is wild.
Isn't that interesting? So
Yeah.
so they're thinking that also when you're meditating and doing deep breathing exercises, that there might be something there, because what you're doing is actually synchronizing your breathing with your brain's rhythm. So with the slowed down brain rhythm, you're synchronizing that slowed breath with the slow overall brain rhythm. So there might be something going on there, or maybe the breathing is helping your brain to slow itself into that rhythm. And that because you're by doing the breathing in through the mouth, out through in through the nose, out through the mouth, very deeply and slowly, you might actually be calming down those neurons in your amygdala, and thus allowing the brain to calm down a little bit. Additionally, if you're panicking and you're running, or you're like, you know, like, yeah, you're panicking, your breathing is faster, right? And so you're going to be inhaling more often than you do when you're calm. And so you may be affecting a faster response time with that faster inhalation for reacting in a dangerous environment.
Future TWIS school. At least we will try. We'll put everybody on for every lecture. Everyone will be on exercise bikes and informed to only breathe through their noses.
That's right.
And the room will be scented as well.
Yeah, we'll have nicely scented room. Yeah. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth.
Keep pedaling.
Keep pedaling.
Otherwise the projector will go down. You're also creating the energy for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Fascinating. Of course, you know, there's definitely more to be seen here, and this is it's speculation, but it's an interesting bit of speculation about breath and the brain. Faux show. Want to tell me another story?
Sure. This is a study involving researchers from 3 continents. They found that habitat destruction still outstrips habitat protection across the planet. And by planet, I do believe they're talking about the one you are living on. I don't think they just picked a random planet, right? Associate Professor James Watson of University Queensland said the published study revealed more than half of the planet could now be classified as completely converted to human-dominated land use. That would be half the land mass of the planet, I would suppose, at least, or the land coverage. In an area of 4.5 million square kilometers, about 2/3 the size of Australia, has been converted to human-dominated land use in the past 20 years alone. As a consequence of past and recent habitat loss, almost half the world's ecoregions now must be classified at very high risk, as 25 times more land has been converted than protected. These highly converted and poorly protected ecoregions occur across all continents, but they dominate Europe, South and East Asia, Western, South and North America. Wow. Western Africa also, and Madagascar are on this list. Watson said the researchers assessed rates of habitat conversion versus protection at a 1 kilometer resolution across the world's 825 terrestrial ecoregions, areas that contain unique plant and animal communities since 1992. This is a long, ongoing study. It showed there has been considerable gains in global efforts to increase the size of the protected areas, but alarming levels of habitat loss persisting. This is Dr. Oscar Venter, University of Northern British Columbia, says it was time political leaders recognized that simply chasing protected area targets while ignoring impacts of rampant habitat loss elsewhere was not a good solution for much of the world's imperiled species. We need to specifically target protected areas to places where habitats are disappearing before it's too late. They identified 41 ecoregions across 45 nations that are in crisis state, where humans have converted more than 10% of the little remaining habitat in the past 20 years. These crisis and at-risk ecoregions are clearly the places where targeted conservation interventions need to be prioritized. So, and they also point out nations tend to be protecting areas in very remote locations where nobody is trying to develop them, right?
Right. I mean, could you imagine, 20 years ago, somebody came through and was like, oh, this part of the San Francisco Peninsula, we're just not going to let you develop it. We're going to protect it. We're just Bay Area, all these new houses that have been going in and all the people living there. We're just not going to let all of these houses happen. We're just going to protect it.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, no. Remote areas are easier to protect because people don't go there. You don't have resources that you need there most of the time, and it just makes it easy. Oh, look, we don't use this space. Let's protect it.
And then somebody finds oil on it, and it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
By protect, we mean never mind.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they're also the idea though is to focus on areas that already have high human conversion use and try to protect even some of those little micro areas that are absolutely on the verge of getting disappeared.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's definitely going to take like they're doing in this story, planning. They're looking around and going, these are areas that are in a crisis state. These other areas around the world are probably the next on the list after that. Let's come up with a list and prioritize so we can help countries start figuring out where they can actually do the most work. I mean, what we're looking at is exponential increase in population size of humans around the world. And so as population goes up, you have to house people somewhere. You have to grow food. You have to get rid of the waste. There is land use related to population growth as well. And so that's what we're seeing. And I'm going to bet the amount of time that the amount of land that we took in the last 2 decades, it's going to be 100 times. If it was 10% in the last 2 decades, it'll be 100%. In the next 2 decades.
Yeah. And
I mean,
so
it's going to go.
We need a Logan's Run type lottery system. No, I don't know. Like, what do you, so one of the things from this, and this isn't, I don't have this story here, but this is something we've talked about before. And there's another version of it. You actually help the ecology better by moving to a very dense urban area. As odd as that sounds, is the more you love nature, the further away from it you should stay. The best way to protect the natural open spaces that are left on this planet are to get yourself into one of those high-rise apartment buildings, buy a condo on the 50th floor, whatever. Get yourself as far from nature as possible, because you, meaning all of us humans, are the thing that destroys nature most.
Well, it's us spreading out. We don't need to spread out. We don't need 10 acres per person. We don't need.
Well, that would be nice.
It would be nice. It would be very nice. But you can have a house or an apartment in a city block, and your needs are taken care of, so you don't have to drive your car as much. So your resource footprint is smaller in a a than it is elsewhere.
I don't want to do it, but I mean, for everybody else, it's a good solution.
There you go, Justin. There you go. Okay, a bunch of fast news stories we can finish up the hour. I've got some fun stories tying it back around to the FDA fast track So we talked earlier about the 21st Century Cures Act. This isn't, these two stories are not kind of within this purview, but FDA does have a fast track that researchers and drug developers can apply for to find out if they can get their drugs to market faster, if they really think they have the evidence to support the benefit of their product. And the first one that is just wonderful is a compound, what's called nusinersen. Nusinersen. What about nusinersen? Well, nusinersen, it is a drug that a paper appeared in the Lancet this week, providing evidence that nusinersen has a very beneficial effect on the cells of the brain and the spinal cord in children who have a genetic disease called spinal muscular atrophy. This disease, basically in a number of years, sometimes a number of months, destroys the motor neurons in the spinal cord and the brain stem so that children can no longer swallow or breathe, and they die from this disease in a very short period of time. The development of the disease depends on the genetic variant that different children have, so that different kids have. There is a gene that's called SMN, and that's for survival of motor neuron. And so SMN1 is motor neuron, survival of motor neuron 1. And there's a protein that's produced by this gene that normally goes on to help motor neurons survive. But when there is a problem in SMN1, the protein is either defective or completely missing. And then the motor neurons deteriorate, and then the children die. So usually when SMN1, with a genetic, if both parents are carriers, the chance of the children being affected is 25%. And if they're affected by the mutation in SMN1, it's basically a death sentence for the child. But there are milder forms that carry a slightly different gene, SMN2, that still produces a small amount of the protein. And so this drug targets SMN2 and upregulates the amount of protein that it makes, so that it makes sure that SMN2 produces a bunch of the protein, this spinal motor neuron protein. And what they found is that it works. That when children are given this drug, their disease process slows down, that everything seems to work. And they basically, it's a late stage trial that they pretty much had to stop because they couldn't continue having a control group and justifying it anymore. And they were like, we got to give the control kids the actual drug because it's working so well. So there have been a few deaths during the trials, but it doesn't seem that they were related to the drug specifically. So it's a very exciting trial, and they are trying to fast track the approval of this drug that is going to be marketed as Spinraza.
And so absolutely for something like that being fast tracked. And it's when I think there should be also like some sort of opt-in ability for folks who, if there's a drug that's being researched currently, right, to be able to opt in to trying it, because we're talking about last arrow in the quiver, or however you want to describe it, last chance sort of thing you can do. And when you're facing end of life type diseases, and I can't even imagine it when you're talking about children, you want to do everything that is possible. You want the drug that hasn't been invented yet, let alone the one that's being studied to be utilized or to be there as an attempt. So Yeah, things like this make absolute sense. Now, the warning in the back of my head, though, because I'm becoming more and more skeptical about everything, is to not allow a study like this to determine how you fast track everything.
No, yes.
Because
absolutely.
And that may be where we're at, but and the reason for it is there's a lot of drugs out there that people would like to sell to the public that may not really be necessary. Just, you can look at the treatment for osteopenia as an example.
Right.
So those drugs were already on the market there, but there's a push to create markets sometimes where they are not in this field. And so something like this absolutely should have the quickest run to production and approval. But don't let studies like this influence you on the industry as a whole.
Right. Each study should have its own, should be assessed on its own merits, for sure. Such as this next study, another fast track application has been made by an organization called MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. They are
I'm in favor of this one too. Wait, I'm sorry, I had a precognitive moment. Maybe it was a flash. I don't know.
Possibly. But they are trying to fast track the approval of MDMA, methyl diethyl methamphetamine, which is also known as ecstasy, popular club drug. It is a Schedule I drug, illegal and not currently accepted as having any medical uses. It has been Schedule I since 1985, but lots of evidence suggests that it might be really great for helping treat PTSD. And this is the fast track use that MAPS is going for. They have had several trials, and they have a new trial coming out that's going to involve at least 230 patients, planning to start in 2017 to study the effects of MDMA on helping to alleviate PTSD symptoms.
Yeah.
It's kind of a last ditch effort kind of therapy. Kind of the interview we did about ketamine, very similarly. It's like when really no other treatments are helping people, it's like, okay, let's try this. Let's see what happens with MDMA. And there have been lots of positive results. So
there's a recent one. We didn't bring it this week, so but it was psilocybin, the magic mushrooms. Were being used to reduce anxiety, or were shown to reduce anxiety in cancer patients. So there's reasons to utilize these molecules, people. We sort of have this sort of draconian. I don't even know what draconian means. We have this way of shutting the door on things, as though there is no scenario in which it can be or could be beneficial. The psychedelics
and with these,
have a place in medicine.
Absolutely. And I feel like we just need to find out what that place is and find out how they really can help people. And researchers need to be allowed to do that work. And and then I should be able to apply for a card or shop at doctors until I find the one that, or study that. No, I'm being silly, but for something that affects veterans, like who've been in combat situations. You take all that, well, we don't want the club kids to get the idea that what they're doing is okay. You take that out of the focus. That's not even on the table of what you're considering when you're looking for cures. You don't worry about the fact that, gosh, the hippies did mushrooms, and therefore we have to make sure there's no counter-revolutionary thinking going on out there. So the cancer patients are just going to have to live with anxiety. Right. Let's
It's ridiculous.
yeah, we got to figure out that we have to look at all the different angles, and hopefully that's what the science will be allowed to do. And the fast tracking of these drugs, it doesn't preclude clinical trials. Like I said, the MDMA trials, they're going into a phase 3 trial at this point, which, they're looking at hundreds of patients. They're doing due diligence. And the same has been done with the Spinraza nersinerin drug that I mentioned previously. It's not that they get to just not do the clinical trials. It's the review process and the paperwork and some of the bureaucratic aspects that are tied up in the FDA get smoothed out to try and just make it happen a little bit faster. But that said, I think a lot of organizations and companies are applying for fast tracking because the FDA process takes so long, just normally.
Yeah, and again, there's always good in a bureaucracy that moves slow, and there's also negative in the bureaucracy moving slow.
Yeah.
There's due diligence, and then there's awaiting a cure while it sits and under review for another year or 2 years. So we got to figure out how to fix this.
Yeah.
Without breaking it.
Don't break it. Do you have any other stories? I have 2 more quick ones.
Yeah, I got a real quick one that I got to throw into the thing there. But this is sort of a backfired conservation effort. Weed scientists in at least 2 Midwestern states, and that's not what it's not.
After we talked about MDMA and psilocybin, it's not
different type.
They're
talking about
weeds.
Just weeds, like grow in your garden. And you don't want them in there, not the other kind. Weed scientists, but who knew there was something called weed scientists that had nothing to do with marijuana, right? Weed scientists in at least 2 Midwestern states have been reporting for years that conservation program meant to provide habitat for pollinating insects is sowing the seeds of devastation in agriculture. So it comes down to this one super invasive, troublesome thing called something Palmer. Where'd it go? Palmer amaranth, which is weed that somehow once it gets into the crops and mixed in with the crops actually damages soil. So I don't know if it has an effect on the soil microbes or just depletes the nutrition of the soil, but it's pretty devastating to corn crops and the like. And apparently what they've drilled down to, the way this came across, is one of these providers to the Department of Agriculture for seeds that they've been sowing into our conserved land is supposed to be 100% weed free and just have native plants that are supposed to go in there and populate and be pollinators and do great. But one of the companies that from the Midwest that had been delivering seeds apparently had this seed mixed in with the bunch. So, this is conservation gone bad if you're putting in an aggressive weed that's bad for not just agriculture, but perhaps even for the pollinating plants themselves. But if you hear about this, that a conservation effort is destroying agriculture, it's not the whole story. It's a weed that was provided to the Department of Agriculture that is causing the problem.
Interesting. Someday you might be playing computer games with your mind, right?
Wait, how else does one?
Well, it's true. I mean, you do play with your mind, but you have these appendages that you use, and we also use our eyes to take visual signals into our brains. And there are all these ways that our body helps collect information to get it into the brain so that we can transform it into an action and a response that our thumbs can play out on a keyboard or a joystick, right? Our mind is really in control of all of that. But, someday we're going to just plug right in to the matrix.
Wow.
Plug right in. It's going to be brain in. And we won't need our eyes or our limbs or anything. Our brain will just be part of the cloud, right? And our brain might be just wanting to play video games. So researchers at University of Washington are working on that. We reported a while back about these researchers using transcranial magnetic stimulation in the back of the brain and the visual cortex to create these artifacts in the visual field called phosphenes, which are basically just like you see light, even though it's not there. So it's kind of like your visual cortex thinks your eye has been stimulated by light, but it hasn't. It's an artifact. Anyway, we perceive them as these like little bars or blobs of light in our visual field. And so the researchers, knowing they could do this, generated these phosphenes through transcranial magnetic stimulation in the back of the people's heads who were not watching a video screen. These people were not watching it at all. But they were able to use the phosphenes to help the people be guided through a video game. So the people whose brains were being stimulated were able to choose whether to go right or left or up or down, and to send back that information. And so in the game, they basically could navigate this game without only using their brains. And so the researchers also recorded brain activity to be able to determine where the character in the video game was supposed to go. So the brains were neurally stimulated, and this is part of the researchers' question, which is basically how do we get information into the brain without using our normal senses? Can we encode information, and how can we encode information so that the brain will perceive it in a way that we can use it to either navigate our environment, navigate a virtual environment, or do any number of things?
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty fun stuff.
Yeah.
Go University of Washington.
There's a little element too where the brain's like, well, someday I won't need the rest of you.
That's right. I won't need my body.
I won't need eyes or arms or legs or all these nasty human appendages. No, just me, just the brain. It's all I need, really.
There's an area of research called embodiment. So the idea is that we need our body and our brains work together. And so our brain embodies our body, right? It holds on to that information and it works with it. And what would the brain be without the rest of us?
I would be so freed up to do so many different things if I didn't have to constantly keep operating a heart and this. You want to walk around and you want to. What are you putting? What are you drinking? Oh, do you not know what you're eating and drinking? How it's going to affect me? What are you doing?
And my final story, which I thought it came out this last week, I just thought it was so wonderful. There are things that, we think we know things, and then we find out we had no idea. It was published in Nature Communications this last week, a study finding that seagrass, it's nice, kelpy grass of the sea, right? When you think of how grass reproduces, normally we've got, grass on the ground, it produces pollen, and that pollen is spread in the air. Also, sometimes it's spread by pollinators. And we talk all the time about bees and other pollinators that are so important to our environment for allowing grasses and flowering plants to be able to perpetuate. Well, you know what? It turns out we need pollinators in the ocean too. and we didn't know this before, seagrass, this is a new finding, that this seagrass relies on pollinators. It doesn't just release its pollen into the water and have that pollen spread about like the polyps of a coral. Like it doesn't just, the pollen doesn't just shoot around on the ocean currents and find more grass. They found that there are microscopic crustaceans and little tiny worms that help pollinate this turtle grass, this seagrass called Thalassia testudinum. This is new research, like I said, published in Nature Communications. So the animals actually were drawn to male flowers. These seagrasses produce flowers, and these organisms are drawn to those male flowers, and it's thought that they're going there like bees and other pollinators to feed off of some kind of sugary or protein-rich source, the pollen, and then the feeding, they basically take pollen from flower to flower in the sea. There are sea bees. I'd never thought that there were sea bees. There are sea bees. Yep. Sea bees under the sea pollinate flowers and grasses for me and you. All right, that does it for me.
Be available on the next music compilation.
That's right.
Kiki sings about sea bees.
That's right. That's where I make up a song. I do this sometimes. This is what I do when it's the end of the show and I've gotten tired. You guys, don't forget. Head over to TWIS.org if you're interested in finding out more about our TWIS calendars for 2017. We'd love to see you there, and also to find out information about our SF Sketchfest show on January 19th at Cal Academy of Sciences in San Francisco. Thank you, everyone, for enjoying the show. Thank you to those of you who suggested stories for this week. So much fun. Thank you to those of you in the chat room who have joined us throughout the show. Thank you to those of you on Facebook who are watching right now, and those of you on YouTube. Thank you, you guys. Right now, I'd like to say thank you to our Patreon sponsors. Thank you to Chris Clark, Paul Disney, G. Burton Lattimore, John Ratnaswamy, Richard Onomus, Byron Lee, EO, Jared Lysette, Ulysses Adkins, Kevin Parachan, Andy, Keith Corsell, Jake Jones, Derek Nickel, Dave Friedel, Mike McGraw, James Randall, Eric Schwab, Bob Calder, Mark Missaros, Ed Dyer, Trainee 84, Brian Hedrick, Layla, Marshall Clark, Charlene Henry, Don Kamarechka, Larry Garcia, Randy Mazuka, Tony Steele, Gerald Onyago, Steve DeBell, Haroon Sarang, Melissa Mosley, Alex Wilson, Jason Schneiderman, Greg Guthman, Dave Neighbor, Jason Dozier, Matthew Litwin, Eric Knapp, Jason Roberts, Richard Porter, Daryl Lambert, Rodney, David Wiley, Robert Aston, Ben Rotheg, Rudy Garcia, Nick Abassi, Felix Alvarez, Darwin Hannon, Cosmic Gypsy, Brian Hone, Orly Radio, Brian Condren, Pixelfly, Marked, Nathan Greco, Hexator, Deborah Smith, Mitch Neves, Flying Out, John Crocker, Christopher Dreyer, Sylvan Westby, Artyom Shuwada, Dave Wilkinson, Steve Mashinsky, Rick Ramus, Gary Swinsberg, Phil Nadeau, Braxton Howard, Salgood Sam, Matt Sutter, Emma Grenier, Philip Shane, Dan Stobson, Kurt Larson, Stefan Insom, Michael George, Russell Jensen, Mountain Sloth, Jim Drapeau, John Maloney, Jason Olds, James Paul West, Alec Doty, Illuma Lama, Joe Wheel, Dougal Campbell, Craig Porter, Adam Mishkan, Eric Luthen, Marjorie Paul Stanton, David Similarly, Tyler Harrison, and Columbo Ahmed. Thank you for all of your support on Patreon. And if you're interested in supporting us, you can find information at patreon.com/thisweekinscience. Remember, you can help us out simply by telling your friends about TWIS. Tell a few people, share us on social media. It'll help us out. But let's see, next week's show, we're going to be back again, broadcasting live at 8 p.m. Pacific time on twis.org/live. But if you can't make it, don't worry. Don't worry, you can always watch us at twis.org/YouTube or just twis.org.
Yeah. Thank you for enjoying the show. TWIS is also available as a podcast. Just Google This Week in Science in your iTunes directory, or if you have a mobile type device, you can click for the TWIS for Droid app in the Android marketplace, or simply This Week in Science in anything Apple Marketplacey. For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes will be available on our website, www.twis.org, where you can also make comments and start conversations with the hosts and other listeners. Or you can contact us directly. Email Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, Justin at twistminion@gmail.com, or Blair at blairbaz@twis.org. Just be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, somewhere in the subject line, or your email will be spam filtered into oblivion. You can also hit us up on the Twitter, where we are at TWIS Science, at Dr. Kiki, at Jacksonfly, and at Blair's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you would like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, a haiku that comes to you tonight, please let us know.
And we'll be back here next week, like I said, and we hope that you will join us again for more great science news.
Yeah. And if you've learned anything from the show, remember,
it's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth, and I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got one disclaimer, and it shouldn't be news, that what I say may not represent your views, but I've done the calculations and I've got a plan. If you listen to the science, you may just better understand that we're not trying to threaten your philosophy. We're just trying to save the world from jeopardy. Jeopardy. And This Week in Science is coming your way. So everybody listen to everything we say. And if you use our method instead of rolling a die, we may rid the world of toxoplasma gondii. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got a laundry list of items I want to address, from stopping global hunger to dredging Loch Ness. I'm trying to promote more rational thought, and I'll try to answer any question you've got. But how can I ever see the changes I seek when I can only set up shop 1 hour a week? This Week in Science is coming your way. You better just listen to what we say. And if you've learned anything from the words that we've said, then please just remember it's all in your head. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in 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 Science.
We finished another show. Oh, it's the Swift. Oh, it's an Estes, though. This is an Estes rocket. We finished another show. We did it. We finished another show. Thank you guys for joining. And it might be a Swift. It's a little tiny Estes rocket. It needs a little tiny A-size little rocket engine in there. There's a little launch tube. You just stand it up there. Pew! That's what it does. And then I like the big rockets with the D engines. There we go. Maybe bigger rocket engines. Oh yeah, if you guys want other podcasts, I also do this stem cell podcast that Ed from Connecticut shared there. Thanks for doing that. Yeah, and I am tired. And there are sea bees, and I make up songs about the Little Mermaid. I'm tired. Why did I get so tired? Maybe it was all that pie I ate, I think. I didn't think it was a lot of pie at the time, but it made me really tired.
How it was. I agree.
Sorry, guys.
No, I'm yawning. All right. Well, fair enough. I think we did a good show. We did about an hour and a half, 40-minute show, something like that.
I think it's a great show. It was good. Could you imagine if Blair had been here? Man, we would have gone 3 hours.
Nah, I would have brought less stories. That's all. I would have talked faster. That's the only difference. Same number of stories, just we talked slower.
Yeah, talk a little fast. I gave myself time to talk today. I didn't push myself to be super fast the whole time.
Yeah, there's some fantastic stories this week too, as there often are. And I always
never
wonder,
an excuse. There's always good, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, I always wonder too, like, if you weren't listening to this show, and therefore maybe I wasn't doing the show, the number of stories I'd miss. I mean,
so many.
I consider myself, even before the show, I'd do some science reading, but it was always light. And, you look up, and a lot of times it's the big headline stories. But there's so much fascinating, incredible stuff going on. I mean, I don't know if anybody who doesn't listen to this show is nearly as aware as to the impact the microbiome is now having on health and nutrition. I don't know that information is out there in a meaningful way. It seems to be a subject that we're covering with some pretty consistently now. New stories, new studies are coming to light. I don't know that.
Nice to talk about them.
I don't know that there would be.
There are other people covering it, but yeah,
there's nobody else covering these things, and there's going to be a Nova special, and there's going to be, but just in terms of, I mean, we're doing a couple hours of science news coverage every week, and it just, I don't know that there isn't really there aren't many resources out there to get this. At least not in an audio form, which is easier. You have to do a lot of reading.
Yeah. Ed, thanks so much. Ed from Connecticut says, I read many of the same stories, but Dr. Kiki explains it so even I can understand it. It's because I have to understand it to explain it. So I have to get it to my point of I have to understand it to myself. Yeah. What does this mean in real language? What am I saying? I just got a text message. You know what it says? Mm-hmm. Snow day tomorrow.
Oh, wow. There you go. You will be able to sleep this pie off.
I know. I get to sleep in tomorrow morning as late as my son will let me sleep in.
Yeah.
I don't have to rush off to school in the morning. Portland Public School is closing all schools and district offices tomorrow.
Wow, they're expecting a good snow.
They are, or at least a good ice. It's supposed to be, even if it doesn't snow, we're basically going to be hit with freezing rain, sleeting rain, which is going to leave black ice everywhere, and it's just going to be dangerous driving conditions.
Years ago in Portland, I put my my windshield had ice and stuff on it. It was defrosting. I thought I'd speed it up by doing the windshield spray on it. Only being a Californian, I had always, a sunny Californian, I had always just put water in there. Because there's a solution you can put in there that won't freeze. But in California, most of California, you don't really need that. Just water is fine. It just works perfectly well. So, of course, I do this, and immediately I have frozen up my entire windshield. At that point where I could not see out of it at all.
Nice work.
Fantastic.
Oh, when you come up here, when you and Blair come up here for it's because at some point you're going to come to Portland,
Okay.
and we're going
to I'm like all of a sudden I'm like, oh wait, I totally forgot. When am I doing this? I have not scheduled this. Oh no. Okay.
Yeah, at some point it's not scheduled yet, but at some point you guys are going to come up here and we're going to do a live show up here in Portland. But I just got a link. So remember our old opening show theme song? I'm a scientist. Oh, everybody, and it was by the Dandy Warhols.
Yeah.
I don't remember all the words. It was several years that we used it for our theme music. The Dandy Warhols frontman, Courtney Taylor, lives in Portland and just opened a wine bar.
Oh, nice.
What?
Yeah, that would be a fantastic place to do a show from.
Oh my God. Yes.
That would be.
I just got a tweet from John Karabayak, who lives here in Portland. That would be so awesome. I'd be like, do you understand? We used your song for so long. Thank you. Yeah, and you know what, Salty Hash? It's not just any wine bar. This wine bar's name is called the Old Portland. It's not the new Portland. This is the Old Portland. I love it. I'm so excited. So excited. But actually in Portland, it's not a wine bar. You don't open that's not being Portland. If you're here in Portland, you open a weed distributor shop, or you open a bar for beer. You're brewing your own beer, artisanal beer. Got artisanal hops. You're making beer. Right. So this bar takes you to Maine. Exactly, Ben. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Desbome. That's what it is. Farm to table wine. There you go. Desbome. Farm to table wine. That's exactly what you get. Oh my God. I would love to meet them and talk. Be like, did you ever listen to our podcast? Because it wasn't a podcast then, it was a radio show. That's the only reason we got to use your song, because you were licensed to a major label. Oh yes, Hot Rod, that's right. If I get to sleep in tomorrow, it means I can stay up late. I don't think I get to sleep in though. Not with a 5-year-old. He's gonna wake up in the morning.
Oh, come on. This is what Netflix is for.
Yeah.
You take your blankets and your pillow, go out.
It's a snow day. You get to
the
watch
couch,
Pokemon.
you set
all
the
day
laptop up,
long.
put on a kid show, you crash out. Of course, every 5 minutes you'll have to get up and get milk or more snacks or.
Okay, I'll get you more stuff. Okay,
you'll get those little 5-minute cat naps.
Yeah.
That you'll be having for the rest of your life.
Look, tomorrow's my day to edit TWIS. Got work to do, man. Got things to do. But I can do these things while Kaya's home. It'll be all good as long as the ice melts and he can go to school on Friday. Because you know what? We only have one more week of school before the holiday, the winter holiday. I do not have enough time in the next week to get all the work I need to get done for the next 3 weeks. This is just not going to work for me.
Yeah.
It's not going to work for me.
Get it done. You always get it done.
I always get it done. I'll get it done. I might complain a little bit, but
Yeah.
I'll get her done. That's right. That's what we do. We get her done. Yay. Yeah. Yeah, you don't ever want to put hot water on your windshield. That's right, Salty Hash. If you do put water, you want to put like room temperature water, maybe slightly warm water, but just, yeah, room temperature. Cold water even. That's what I used this morning.
Okay, I'm going to attempt to show you something. I'm going to have to move my mic.
Oh, yeah, I want to see that skull. What's up with that skull? You posted pictures of it on Facebook. What's going on here? Where did you get a skull? Why?
Why? That's not a question you ask. Why, too?
It is. Why? Do you have a purpose for this skull? Or did you just go, is it a real skull?
No, they no longer make these.
Who
Take
is
a
it?
close look at the brow.
I know. Who is it?
Look at that brow.
Who is it?
Quite pronounced.
Is it Artie?
Oh,
No.
God. Hang on.
Neanderthal. Is
Yep.
that Neanderthal skull?
It's a Neanderthal skull.
That's right. The brow. Pronounced brow. It's gotta be.
It's a Neanderthal skull.
Where'd you get a Neanderthal?
Well, apparently they make life-size replicas
Really?
of these things.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I got one because I kind of had to. Not because wasn't really like a want thing or a required functional thing that was missing. I just needed to. I was like, I need to have that. We cover a lot of Neanderthal stories here. So I thought, I'd have this guy staring at me, reminding me to find something Neanderthal related for each week's episode.
I love it. And then at any episode, you'll just bring up the skull and hold it up. And then my Neanderthal friend has some news. We have a story for you.
There we go. It's still not mounted on there. I'm missing part of it, but yeah, there he is.
He's got a big head. That's a big head. That's a big jaw too. I'm gonna try and here. Yeah, compare your teeth. He's got big teeth. Wow.
He's got some big
I would not want to be bitten by a Neanderthal.
No, I don't know. Actually, I'm gonna have to check on these teeth. I don't know that they're. Oops, oh my God. I don't know that they're quite right. I'm not sure that I have to check into that because I expected the front teeth to be a little flatter, although we don't really have a canine pronounced. So they are, I suppose, a bit flatter, but it's for gripping things and such. Oh boy, I don't know if I'm gonna have to put this thing back together later. Here you go.
Ed from Connecticut, yes, Standing Rock is getting real snow. It's true. You're right. Yes. Reality of the people who are still camping. I'm complaining about cold weather here in Portland. Cold. Yeah. It's windy.
And you're indoors.
I'm wearing 2 sweaters in my house. Well, yeah. Yeah. There are a lot of other people, not just Standing Rock. People at Standing Rock have been standing up for themselves and their beliefs, but there are a lot of people around the world who live out in the elements all the time. I got a little bit of city girl wimpiness here.
Des Bohm quotes the Neanderthal, nevermore. Nevermore. Yeah, like it.
Oh my gosh, though. The wind is picking up here and it's making my whole house shake. Makes my whole house shake, so the floor shakes and my monitor shakes a little bit on my desk. I don't want to be outside right now. I'm very, very thankful that I have a roof over my head and that I'm here. I'm very thankful for that. Yeah. Alas, poor Neanderthal, I knew him well. Quoth Neanderthal. That's good. Minus 17 in Fairbanks. That's just not that. I'm not okay with that.
Holy smokes.
I have I mean, this is not an excuse, but I have Raynaud's where when my nose gets cold, I go out in the cold and my nose gets cold, and it doesn't even have to be really cold outside. When it's really cold, it's really pronounced, but I lose all the circulation in my fingers and my toes. Yeah, so that I can't use my fingers and toes anymore. They go completely numb. It's not fun.
No, but that's your body trying to survive. It's like let's cut circulation to the extremities.
We don't need
and
those.
We'll keep
those
the core
yeah.
warm to survive this. Yeah.
Yeah. Ben Rothig, when you're hot, the high is supposed to be 3 next week. Oh my goodness.
Oh wow.
Yep. This is about as far north as I go. This is it. I don't need to be any higher in elevation. I don't need to be any further north.
Yeah.
I'm just fine. Everybody should just, know where their body works well. They should stay. Yeah. Oh yeah, and then there's Yanni, exactly. In Finland, they go ice swimming after their saunas. Exactly, Ed. Oh my goodness. $27. It's 27. Yeah. I don't know how cold it is outside. It's like 30 outside right now, I bet. Here, it's only 30. Gray Griffin. I just got a tweet from Brian Eng. Who's Brian Eng? Gray Griffin. Dinosaurs, monsters, rap music. Vengeance from the old forest and all forms of beasts who eat humans and bring ruin. What is this? Oh yeah, I have electric heating gloves actually. I should get those. They're USB, you can plug them in. USB pluggable gloves. They're awesome. Yeah, checking the temperature.
Or you could just try to climatize.
Climate what?
Climatize. Just stop running the heater in the house. Pretty soon, you'll be just fine.
Nope. It's pretty funny though, because that's where I grew up. That was the house I grew up in. I grew up in a house with no central heating. We had a kitchen, wood burning stove, and there was a floor heater, a furnace in the floor of the living room. And so
I had one of those.
The downstairs, we'd heat like 3 rooms of the downstairs usually. Yeah. And then the upstairs would be completely shut off. And there's no insulation in the entire house. It's a house that was built in the mid 1800s. So you'd live in the wintertime. We lived downstairs and then we'd have to go upstairs to sleep. And it was like you put on the parka to go upstairs to go to bed. Brush your teeth wearing your jacket over your pajamas. Wow. And then we had electric blankets and stuff, but getting up in the morning was
brutal.
You wake up and you breathe, and your breath, you can see your breath in front of you in the house. Mm-hmm. I was thinking the other night, I'm like, man, yeah, my child's never gonna grow up having to deal with that at all. He's a lucky kid. Because his mom doesn't want to acclimatize. Done that. Fireplaces are nice, Ben. Who's Brian Eng? Is Gray Griffin somewhere in the chat room right now? Somebody tweeted to us and said, "This is me."
Salty hash, yeah.
Email.
Twas the norm throughout human history. Crazy how quick we get used to it. And you know, I think people can acclimatize within their own lifetime quickly and easily.
Oh, sure, yeah. You
know, when there's a heat wave in the 80s in New York, many people die from it. You know, when it's midsummer in the Central Valley and it's 80, everybody puts on a sweater. Because all of a sudden the temperature dropped 20 degrees. Brr,
when it drops really fast, it's hard to get used to it.
Yeah. My experience when I went to Greenland, it was probably low 40s the whole time I was there. Sun didn't go down at night, so there wasn't a night. It was just always like in the low 40s. And at first, I had layers, and I was dressed for the Arctic when I got there. And of course, after being there a bit, I could go out in shorts and a t-shirt and have the morning or middle of the night or whatever time it actually was, cup of coffee on the front porch. You kind of do get used to these things. In fact, I remember flying back. We were in Denmark, and it was sweating. I had just a shirt on. I was sweating through the shirt and the backpack and everything. And it was only like 70 something degrees, but that 30-degree rise in temperature was like a heat wave to my body. Like I was sweating in 70. So I think that we have ability to change our body's temperature regulation pretty quickly.
I think so. I agree. You know, and then there are those individuals who, you know, not just go jumping in ice water, but where they actually do feats of, you know, existing in the cold. I think there's some specials about this one person. I know there are probably more, but this one guy at least who thermoregulates to such a degree that he like wears a Speedo in sub-zero temperatures. And he's like, I'm fine. No worries.
Yeah. I think that maybe that guy, and then there's another guy who can handle super hot saunas that were profiled in Stanley's Superhumans or something.
Yeah, I think it was in Superhumans, yeah. It's healthier to be cold, huh? The thermostat is down, and I'm wearing 2 sweaters. Tell me about being cold. Then I'm cold. But, if I get cold, sometimes I'm like, well, maybe that brown fat shivering thermogenesis will get started.
There you go.
And then just like the warming brown fat cells that are in there somewhere will just start energizing me and just generating more heat.
Yeah, and hey, there's nothing wrong with wearing a sweater indoors if you have the thermostat turned down. What's troubling, is if the heat's not on. What's troubling is if you've cranked the air conditioner and are now wearing a sweater. Then you're doing it wrong.
That's wrong.
That's when you're doing it wrong.
No.
That's the not okay version. But you don't have the heat cranked up so high, and so you've got a sweater on. Perfectly acceptable.
Thanks. Yeah, Arctic reindeer herders.
Ed, grandfather's home had a coal furnace in the 40s. Yeah, his job as the youngest was to get up and shovel coal to get it going in the morning. Tough job, but I can't imagine having a coal furnace. I've had a lot of the wood burning stove memories from cabins and small places out in the sticks. I definitely remember that. A lot of wood chopping was involved. Tremendous amount of time, it seemed, but maybe it was just because it was one of the chores I had to do that it seemed all time consuming. Might not have actually taken that long.
It was like my dad making me mow the lawn. It seemed like it took all summer to mow the lawn.
Yeah. But yeah, we chopped wood. I mean, the wood chopping happened all summer. It really did. And then you'd have this magnificent piled stack of firewood, black widows, and rattlesnakes at the end of it.
Yeah. Oh God.
And then you throw a big tarp over it, and come the winter, there it was, all your fuel.
Yeah, like Des Bowman saying, save the wood splitting for the winter, and then it heats you twice that way. That's good. It's all good. Wow. Portland Public Schools has sent me many messages. They really want me to know that tomorrow's canceled. Okay, I get it.
Yeah. Do not drop your kid off and then drive back home. Your kid will be standing in an abandoned school in the snow, freezing to death.
Yeah.
They're going to have somebody there just to let those people who didn't get the message into a warm classroom until they can be picked up again.
I hope. I don't know. Yeah.
That better be the plan.
It'd have to be somebody there. Wow, this dude really wants to get in touch. Hello, Brian. Interesting. Look at this. Portland's freaking out about snow. As people are tweeting about Portland freaking out about snow. It's ridiculous. Okay. I'm tired. God, I got nothing there's nothing in here anymore. Just tired. Well, there's lots in here, but it's tired. It's tired. I hope people buy more calendars if you have not gotten one yet. And I will be sending more out. You know, I forgot to say on the show that Blair really wants to sell the calendars out by her birthday, which is next week. So gotta get to work on that, people.
It's before next week. It's by next week.
By next week.
But yeah. It's
coming
like
up.
I can't remember what hers is. I know it's close to mine. That's coming up really soon.
We need to sell, I don't know, somewhere.
Good night, Hot Rod. Good night, Minions.
We need to
Who
sell
are
like
leaving?
40 calendars still, maybe. Come on, people. Yeah, good night, you guys. Have a wonderful night. And I hope everyone stays warm wherever they are, or at least as warm as they need to be for themselves.
I think we should all be able to see our breaths when we wake up.
When you wake, may you wake
that should be.
to clouded breath. And we'll be back next week for show. We'll be back, and we're looking forward to more science, more science, and tales of Disneyland from Blair. Yeah. So everyone have a wonderful week. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see you again next week. Thank you so much.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.